Hello,
Hello,
hello.
everyone. Hi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our March Canary member call.
Can't believe it's
I'm
March.
Dr. Natasha. Yeah. I'm Dr. Natasha.
And I'm Neeyaz, and I can't believe it's March.
It's actually the end of March. It's almost April.
This is true. I stand corrected.
So this month we are talking about we say this like almost every month, but this is legit one of our favorite topics. And it is body work for holistic mind-body healing and also the impacts that has on an autoimmune healing journey. So we're really glad you're going to join us today because we're going to share our story with healing with body work and then teach you guys some things you can do.
Amazing. It's actually the one that you and I text about the most is body work.
I mean, I think it's been such an amazing pivotal tool in my healing
Yeah.
to the point that I changed my career and I became a body worker.
Mhm.
So that's pretty clear. But I think you also are, a lot of people that I know and met are very dedicated to your body work practices and the ones that you do yourself and also the ones that you go out and get professional help with.
Mhm. About it.
Yeah. So when we're talking about body work, we can just dive right in and talk about it. So a lot of times people know what we're talking about when we mention body work, and sometimes people are like, "What do you mean when you say body work?" So, what are the most popular modalities you can think of, Niaz, for body work?
I'm thinking of the ones that I get myself, and one would be chiropractic, which I know you know all about that one. Massage, I'm thinking about it because I need one right now. Tapping, and what's another one that I really like to do? Those are the three like main ones that I definitely like to do. But there's energy work also. There's like energy type of modalities as well too.
Yeah, I would have to say I have a similar like top list, but there's
Mhm.
so many different. I actually don't think I've ever had a body work modality that I have disliked or
Yeah.
have not found some benefit to. But my top one, like if I was feeling under the weather or I wanted the most benefit, my top one for sure is a chiropractic adjustment.
Mhm.
And within that, we'll talk a little bit about it today because I know a lot of people are really interested when they follow me or they hear me talk about it because there's a lot of different techniques within chiropractic. So it can shed some light on that
Yeah.
if you're familiar or not. But second to that is massage. And even with massage, there's like tons of different techniques.
So many.
So sometimes I go for the more relaxation, Swedish style. Sometimes I go for the good old beating. Beating. I love those too.
Those are
Um,
the best.
so there's benefits and like pros and cons, benefits and precautions for each type of technique. We'll talk a little bit
Mhm.
about today. And then I also, I don't get it as much, but I really enjoy energy work as well
Yeah.
in different techniques. Sometimes it's built into other body work modalities.
Mhm.
In the past, I've also responded really well to acupuncture.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I think that's been really great for mind body balance and also hormonal balance, digestive stuff, sleep.
Mhm.
And what else? Are there other major ones?
Um, let's see. I do acupuncture weekly. I do cupping once a month, which is just also a really supportive way, especially if you are one who gets like really sore, if you work out a lot, or if you're sitting all day. Really helpful too. That's another one. Lymphatic drainage,
Mhm.
also great. I like to do that one on myself. I've had the massages done in the past. I think that's actually what sparked my love of massage was getting the lymphatic drainage type
Yeah.
of massages. And then I loved how like deep those massages felt, like actually physically how deep they went. That I was then like, what's a deep tissue massage? Like I want to get that done now. And then I did that. And then like I remember when I was in Costa Rica a couple of years ago, I had the ashiatsu massage where they like walk on your back. And I was like, what? This is magic.
Yeah, I love kind of learning about different, I
Mhm.
mean, traditional cultures, but other like different regions or different techniques of doing similar things because they have a lot of different benefits, but then the different styles thrown in. I think the other one I thought of also is just fascial work,
Yeah.
where instead of necessarily working on the bones or the muscles of the body, you are really specifically targeting any stuck areas or scar tissue or things in the fascia, which is a really important soft tissue as well. And then one that I think is very underappreciated but has been phenomenal for me is visceral organ manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's mostly done in like the abdomen area, but this is where you get kind of like a really specific and often deep massage in your belly where your organs are. So a lot of times it's about pulling organs away from the abdominal wall because they may have been stuck or scar tissue, or like lifting organs if they've kind of like moved around in that space. Because you can kind of just think of our bellies as these like fluid filled sacks, right, with all of our organs floating in it. And we don't really think about the placement of our organs often. But you know, just because they're there doesn't mean they're in their optimal place. So sometimes because of, you know, like if you had an infection, like you had food poisoning once, or you just had like food sensitivities and you got inflammation in your gut, you can have scar tissue or just, you know, stuff stuck in there. So actually having a really trained specific visceral organ massage or manipulation can move things and then create just so much flow, so much better digestion, better sense of overall well-being. So that's something, and it's strange because I think in our culture, meaning Western or American culture, this is a very off limits part of the body. So when you go to get body work done, often it's very common to like get your feet or your hands or your back addressed. And then I think more intimate is like having cranial or like head work. But very rarely do you come across like places that offer professionally trained services where they'll like go into your belly or even in the chest.
Even in the glutes. Like I always have to request like massage my glutes. Like,
I know, I guess the places I go to, they just go and they go into the glutes.
I have to be like, do it. I'm sitting a lot of the time. I need you to like get those knots out of there. It's totally okay.
Yeah, totally. So maybe the way we can structure this, because Neeyaz and I both have personal healing journeys and stories with autoimmunity. So we'll share with you guys a little bit about our personal experience with that, and then we'll go into the specifics of each one of these a little bit, so we can give you some tips and tricks and tidbits to look for when you're curious about a certain modality and what type of place or practitioner or keywords to look for each type. So I'll let Neeyaz start and tell us a little bit about her. You know, you may in previous calls have heard both Neeyaz and I's story about our autoimmune diagnosis or like the things we did with food and the stuff we've changed. But for both of us, body work, like the physical part, was massive. So tell us about how bodywork impacted your autoimmune healing journey.
I mean, I've always been the kind of person that will try everything once. And so you hear a lot about how things like acupuncture and chiropractic adjustments and massages are all good for you. And I'm like, I'll try anything just to see like if it's actually going to make a huge difference in my healing. So I can even think back to like before I was diagnosed with autoimmunity, I would go see a chiropractor because I was told like getting those adjustments was really healthy for your body. And I was like, okay, I'll go get it done. And then again, like I mentioned, I was getting those lymphatic massages more or less, I think, for vanity purposes. I was like, it helps to minimize cellulite and like all the things that I just don't really care about anymore. But at the time, it was all very much vanity. But I also realized like how much better my body felt even after those were done, and how much better I was sleeping. My digestion was a lot better. My bones weren't like cracking and popping anytime I like stood up. Just like those little bits that I started to really pick up on, that I realized like this might be something that I really should look into as a more consistent type of practice. And so when I was first diagnosed, the very first things that are easy to kind of address is anything really physical and tangible. So nutrition, obviously cleaning household products like we've talked about in the past, and also the bodywork stuff, because that was something that I could make an appointment for, go see somebody for, and have it be something that was very frequently done for me. So I was getting those chiropractic adjustments done pretty good, like scheduling them out at least weekly. And then I moved to New York and things just kind of fell off of my radar. But even when I was living in New York, I found somebody to get massages with. I found somebody to help me with like understanding lymphatic drainage and using the tools on myself, just like as much as I could possibly get my hands on, because I was also in college and I was on a college budget, and we'll get into all that stuff later too, as far as like accessible ways of doing this kind of work. But then as I got older, and I think as my body started to talk to me a little bit more about like, hey, I need you to take a little bit better care of me, I then became really interested in energy medicine. As I started to like really, I call it like the second half of my healing is more so on the energy level. Like I did all the physical, tangible stuff, and then I really went a little bit deeper. And so it was at that point that I started to discover things like acupuncture and cupping and learning about Chinese medicine, and going to find somebody that I could trust. That's like a big thing too, like finding a, practitioner that you can really trust to do that kind of work on you, because especially acupuncture, it's very vulnerable, and it can be very intimidating for somebody who's never done it before. I've had bad experiences in the past, and I now like have great experiences with it, and I fall asleep every single time. But finding that person that I could trust too. But that's made a really big difference for me, even like balancing my hormones, helping me get my period back when I used to like lose my menses. That was a really big factor. And I now like bodywork is a non-negotiable for me now. Like no matter what's going on in my day-to-day, honestly, even in the midst of like COVID, like not being able to get massages, I know for you and I, we've talked about this, like that was really difficult for me, not because like, I don't want to say this out of a place of privilege, because I have access to it. And I know that that is a big thing that I'm very much aware of, but my body really responds so well to that kind of therapy. And I could physically tell that my body was not feeling good because I wasn't having that kind of caring done to myself as frequently as I used to get it. So something like massage, acupuncture, cupping, those are like my three main negotiables that I really try to be really consistent with. And then craniosacral therapy, a big one too, especially for thyroid eye disease. I discovered it through Yelp. I don't even remember how I found out about it really. I think I was just Googling like therapies for eye inflammation or something, and it must have come up at the time. And then I found my practitioner through Yelp, and I went to see her, and I fell in love with her. And I've now like, up until this last year, which I haven't gone to see her because of COVID, she just recently reopened, and I'm going to go see her next week. And I'm like so excited. But even that kind of therapy, it's very energetic. It's very minimal movement. But I've had the most profound healing from that kind of work, like the kind that makes me like heave over and bawl my eyes out, the kind that makes me just like feel very much like connected to my body. And like, you can't make that stuff up. Like you can't fake that kind of healing. So it really does say a lot of volume as far as like how beneficial it can be too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is why we became such good friends so fast on the internet, even though we've never met in person.
I know.
Because we've experienced so many of these similar things in our life and our journey, and they continue to be a top priority for us. But to speak on something you brought up about accessibility or about, privilege too. And I know that a lot of, practitioners, or not practitioners, a lot of people might view body work as something that's just like, superfluous, or something that's just like privilege. But what I want to remind people is that touch is one of the original healing modalities. Like before there was medicine or modern medicine, humans, we have always touched each other. And so Neeyaz and I were just saying, in terms of like, just even massage, like why don't friends massage each other? Why isn't there like, platonic massages? Because I know within my family, we were all very touch oriented. My parents always massaged us as kids every night. So it was something that was very part of our both like calming practices and ways to connect, but it has these deep, profound healing benefits for the brain, for the body, for the lymphatic system, for digestion, all of those things. So, when we talk about this, that's really the foundation of a lot of things underneath it, that we're not robots, we're not machines. So as much as we like to sometimes talk about the body or health as this formulaic thing, it's really not. We're energy beings, and touch is one of those interfaces that has been deeply rooted in the design of human beings or animals too. If you guys have pets, you know that they crave touch, even with each other or with you. So fundamentally, this is why I think it's such a passionate topic for us, because touch is, like, to me, one of the most human things that we have, or alive things. It's not even human, it's just life. Um, and that was kind of, just very briefly, I have probably a really long, complex history with my autoimmune healing and touch. And I'll try to touch on it briefly, but I really want to get into some of the details of these modalities so we can give you guys tips on what to look for. But before I even knew that I had Hashimoto's and celiac and all these autoimmune problems going on, I just had a plethora of confusing mystery symptoms, as I call them, a lot of which included pain and exhaustion, chronic fatigue, just really, I mean, at this point, what I can understand was disconnect from my mind, body, spirit self. So, that there was a lot of root causes that can be addressed with things like food and supplements, meditation, those sort of things. But I didn't know I had any of those issues. So I didn't start with nutrition. I didn't know I had food sensitivities. I didn't know I had anything. So it wasn't even on my radar to be like, let me change my diet. And this was over a decade ago, which I think now people, when they start to have symptoms, they go, oh, let me think about what I'm eating or whatnot. But back then I didn't really. I was just having what I was experiencing was a lot of body pain. Just stories through people that I knew that I really trusted, having really amazing experiences with chiropractors. I didn't really know what it was. What I thought chiropractic was at the time was somebody who was like, I guess I could call like a functional anatomist. I was like, oh, they understand anatomy really well. They can tell me if my posture is good or bad, like if my muscles are imbalance, like not from the perspective of a personal trainer who's going to give you exercises, but somebody who's just kind of like, oh, this is where you're at. So that's where I found myself feeling like I wanted to visit a chiropractor, because I went to sit down one day and just, like plopping onto a couch, and I felt something like move in my hip, and then my neck locked up. And I was like, oh, there's an imbalance going on here. Maybe that's the root cause of a lot of my plethora of mystery symptoms. So when I went to my first chiropractor, thankfully she was of the philosophy and technique of this holistic approach, where it was like your mind, body, spirit are all connected, and you can have physical, chemical, or mental symptoms that contribute to the cause of all of this. So she did the full-on evaluation. She took x-rays. Not all chiropractors do. And her report to me was that I was operating at about 10% of my potential, because of the way that my body was contracted and my posture was like forward and I was imbalanced. So as soon as I started those adjustments, initially from this perspective of like, let's get you aligned, let's just at least get you structurally aligned, she didn't really have to sell me on any of the other concepts. She's like, let's just start with the structure. But as soon as I started getting those physical adjustments, I started to notice that things in my mood were shifting for the better, and my sleep and my digestion were shifting for the better. So I didn't really need an explanation. I experienced it in my body. And so at the time I was dealing with autoimmune reactivity, but I didn't know it. It was years later that I ran blood tests and got diagnosed. But those mystery symptoms started to dissipate. The depression, the anxiety started to lift. I was sleeping better. My digestion was better. My energy was better. My skin cleared up. So that became my intro into the world of healing and autoimmune healing that was often different than other people's. A lot of people enter autoimmune healing through the AIP diet or through, like more the nutritional, like do things for yourself route. And why I really, appreciate my journey and love it and kind of am on a mission to teach people about this is because I came through a different door. And without those modalities, I don't think I ever would have felt well enough to explore diet changes. I was so like deep down in the pits of my rock bottom phase that I had no motivation, no interest, no capability to be like, let me remove ice cream from my diet or gluten or these things that were really causing me problems that I didn't know, because they were the few pieces of like joy I had in my day.
Right.
So it was like when I was in such a bad place that the fact that I could just show up and have somebody touch me and I didn't have to communicate, I didn't have to talk, I didn't have to go home and meal prep, was like life changing for me. The fact that I could show up where I was at and be helped. So that's why I really encourage people when they're feeling overwhelmed or stressed to surrender to that and to find somebody to help you non-verbally through your body. So I have a lot more to go into like specifically, but I, you know, since then have really built in massage practices. My husband and I love getting different types of massage, but I think our favorite techniques are Thai massage, Thai yoga massage, which we'll talk a little bit about, or Tui Na. It's like a deep tissue Chinese method of massage. And then, yeah, so we'll get into those now. We'll talk about really specific modalities. So just so you guys know, we're going to, you know, have a Q&A session at the end. We have some submitted questions too. So if you guys have any questions while you're watching, or if you're watching the replay, leave questions in the comments and we should be able to see them so we can share them onto the screen so everyone can join along. But let's talk a little bit about these specific modalities. And again, when we talk about the body, there's a lot of different tissues, right? So there's what I referred to already that are bones. This is our structure, our osseous tissue. So this is intended to be the frame of the house, like the actual structure, right? Then on top of that, we have soft tissues. So soft tissues include things like muscle, which is the most obvious one. And generally massage and muscle are kind of related. So it's like, oh, you have muscle pain, let's get a massage. That's oversimplification, but we'll leave it at that. The muscles, just so you guys know, like the brief function of them is movement. So muscles contract and release, and they move our bone structures, the frame. So when a muscle has to compensate because the frame is crooked and the muscle has to pull and hold that frame straight for hours or days on end, that's where you get chronic muscle pain. So it's really important to get that like structural alignment as well as releasing the pain and stress in that muscle that's overworking. Because muscle is meant to kind of just do an action and then let go, do an action and then let go. So when there's a continued strain on the muscle, you're going to get scar tissue, you're going to get like burning sensations, just chronic pain in the muscles. And you go get a massage and you might feel relief for a day. And then it goes back to work and it starts pulling because the structure is misaligned. So that's how these things work hand in hand. Then there's fascia, which is like the white stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys are meat eaters and you sometimes see like the meat, there's the fat parts of it, but then there's like this white sheath. And the fascia is really amazing. We could do a whole thing on fascia, but they actually believe meridian systems might be fascial lines through the body. But this is more, you know, a connective tissue and it communicates, and there's tendons and there's ligaments, which hold the bones together. Tendons hold the muscles to the bones. So there's all this soft tissue. Organs are soft tissue. Blood is soft tissue. So we have all of this stuff moving. And all of these techniques that we're going to talk about right now address different ones of these. So let's start with the most kind of esoteric one, which has like the ones that have to do with meridians. So Neeyaz, you want to tell us a little bit about what are meridians? Where do they come? I mean, I know it's a big question, but just generally, what are meridians? Where do they come from? And then what are some techniques that can address imbalances in the meridian?
Yeah. So meridians, very simply, are basically energy hotspots throughout the body. And we have them all over our body. And they're said to even be like feet, like certain amount of feet outside of our body. Like if you really step a little bit further as far as like the energy body is concerned. And like you said, the meridians, they believe that the sheath of it is actually within the fascia itself, which I've read that too. And I think that that's very fascinating. And it does make a lot of sense when you think about modalities such as EFT tapping, which uses the meridians, and also acupuncture, which uses the meridians as well too. So when you go to some place like an acupuncturist and you're getting acupuncture done, those acupuncture needles are basically being pressed onto or pressed into different meridians or energy hotspots throughout the body in order to address whatever the imbalance or the ailment might be that you're experiencing. And EFT tapping basically does the same thing without the needles, and the pressure that you're using is just the pressure of the tapping that you're providing onto your body, onto those meridian points. So each meridian corresponds to a different function or a different body part. So your hands and the palms of your hands, the bottoms of your feet, thus like the soles of your feet, contain the entire imprint of your body, as well as the entire portioning of your ears. There are meridian points for every organ of your body, like along all of these planes, which is so fascinating because for example, like anxiety relief is outside of the middle finger. There's a meridian on both sides of the middle finger that if you actually just pinch it, it helps to address anxiety. There's another meridian on the very center of your chest. So if you start from your nipples and you go all the way into the middle of your chest, right here in the center is another spot for anxiety as well too. And you can either massage it in like a circular motion, or you can just tap it itself. So it's really fascinating if you can even just Google, or we can maybe like pull up a picture of meridians of the body itself. And it's really fascinating to see where these different planes kind of line up. And like I mentioned, the two main types of modalities are the acupuncture and then the EFT tapping, which use the meridian system in order to facilitate that kind of healing.
Awesome. That's a great summary. Yeah. And the tapping is, she'll show you a demo of that in just a little bit, but it's really amazing because you're tapping into these meridians. So you're kind of signaling to your energy body, but also your nervous system to rewire what's going on. And the same goes, some people are scared of acupuncture, like with the needle part. Yeah. But even acupressure. So that's another style of like massage or therapy where instead of tapping, you sort of just put pressure in, and you can do acupressure on just the soles of the feet or the hands. So that's, an extension of that. And then also, it's most commonly associated with Chinese medicine, but also traditional Indian medicine has a very similar system of meridians. So if you guys ever explore Ayurvedic medicine, which I think we're going to do a whole month on, they also have meridians. They do massages along specific meridians and practices. So that's a really cool combination of energy medicine and body work, and kind of the physiology is any sort of meridian style therapy. So Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, or even these kind of modern techniques like EFT tapping, which we'll show you how to do some for yourself at home. So you don't have to be a professional to do them.
No, you really don't.
And then so the next one we'll touch on briefly is I actually want to talk a little bit about chiropractic and osteopathy and kind of the similarities and differences. So chiropractors and osteopaths might do things that look similar, or sometimes the adjustments might look similar. I think osteopaths usually call it a manipulation. Chiropractors call it an adjustment usually. And there's a lot of kind of within chiropractic, which I know intimately, there's a lot of ideas of like our thoughts and our lifestyle and our patterns also having a big impact on our health and healing. So anytime there's kind of a word that could be associated with like, negativity, like a manipulation, is why we don't call it, often a chiropractic manipulation, because we're not manipulating the body. We're adjusting and we're assisting your own body in its healing. That's not to say that osteopaths intend that. It's just kind of the medical term for it is a manipulation of a joint or an area of the body. Traditional osteopathy, which originated in Europe, is very similar to like kind of traditional chiropractic as well, in which they really have this foundational philosophy that the body is a self-generating, self-regulating, healing organism. The really two cool distinctions between that is that chiropractic believes that the nervous system, the brain and the nerves are the highway of communication through the body. And traditional osteopathy, meaning European trained osteopathy, believes that the lymphatic system is the highway of communication through the body. I think both are amazing. I love the nervous system and the lymphatic system, but just to give you an idea of where the techniques developed, chiropractic will have an adjustment, and generally the intention is to send information through the nervous system. So through our nerves, through our joints, and communicate to the brain and the body so they're more connected. That doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact on the lymphatic system, but that's the idea of the techniques. Whereas in osteopathy, often they want to move fluid. They want the lymph to move, the blood to move. But again, they're using joints or parts of the body to create that movement through the body. And then, there's osteopathy that's more, I would say, Western or like American trained. That doesn't mean that everybody in the North America practices this type of osteopathy, but it generally looks more conventional medical. It often will be more aligned with like prescription medications, pain relief, that sort of stuff, and less about the actual body work, manipulation, adjustment, whatever you want to call it. So those are like some DOs that are more in the traditional medical realm. But then again, there are DOs and there are osteopaths in Canada, North America, United States, who align with the European version where they do more body work. And so those are some like technical similarities and differences that may seem really confusing to someone who's not in the field. But within that, there are a range of techniques. So if you've ever been adjusted, there's the, what we could call on this end of the most high force, which is what you may have seen in movies where it's like they'll kind of twist the body, or you might hear a crack or a pop or those sort of things. That's probably the deepest, highest force type adjustment, which is incredibly effective at sending a lot of information to your nervous system and through your body. But sometimes for certain people, especially if you're a highly sensitive person who might react to supplements or can't handle a lot of stimulus, it's not that the technique is bad, it's just not the right match for you at this time. So when you are in a place where you can handle a big barrage, that's an incredibly deep adjustment that will move a lot of scar tissue and kind of have a big reset for your body. But along that spectrum, there's some medium, low, and no force techniques that if you're a sensitive person, which if you're watching this, you probably are, you might want to start with some of those medium or low, no force techniques as well, so that your nervous system can build up its resilience to that that barrage of information. So, you guys can always reach out to me if you have specific questions, or I can kind of guide you through that. But just to give you an idea, there's a specialized technique that's drop table. It's a specialized table where we don't twist the body, it's the table drops. That's my preferred technique to practice and to get adjusted. I love it all, but that's my favorite. And then there's instrument assisted. So you guys may have, I thought I had it here on my desk with me. My activator, there's a little instrument that does like a little click, and you can put it on joints of the body and just click, click, click. And it'll make like lower force, more specific adjustments. This is also great for elderly people, great for babies, and great to get into like really specific areas like the ribs, if you want to adjust those areas. That's a lower force one that some people really love. And then finally, there's like no force techniques. The most popular one I would say is network spinal analysis, if you're familiar, but it's really an energy, almost no touch technique that realigns your body. And then when you stand up, your body kind of re-educates itself. So that is my, 5-10 minute summary of two, massive fields of practice, but there's so much within it. So if you've never had the experience, or you've had an experience and it wasn't the right match for your body, don't give up, because there's so much benefit to be had from all these different approaches and techniques. And when you download the mini guide, you can look for the names of these techniques and Google somebody in your area who does it. And then that way it can get you into that experience of having an adjustment, a chiropractic or an osteopathic adjustment that can really be life-changing, like it has been for me and for Neeyaz. Yeah. Okay, so then let's talk about massage and then start to move on to our Q&A. So massage, we've already kind of touched on this, but similarly, there's a spectrum of techniques, right? What is the like lightest technique you've experienced, Neeyaz?
Oh, probably, you're going to laugh because it's really not light, but ashiatsu, which is really not light, but it feels very light.
Uh-huh.
I actually just really like heavy weight on my body.
Me too. I do too. And some people don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it actually speaks to kind of your constitution, also where your nervous system
For
and your body's
sure.
at. But deep pressure is really calming for a lot of people. It's this term in neurology called proprioception. So you actually are like activating these deep pressure sensors, and they are going up straight up and feeding the cerebellum, which is the two lobes in the back of your brain here that have to do a lot with balance and like like body awareness and space, but actually also immune and emotional regulation. So they're finding that the cerebellum has a big impact in that. So if for people who enjoy touch, who enjoy deep pressure, anything that has this proprioceptive input into our brain is going to just light it up and make it feel great. So I'm similar to you, which, I love like really strong hugs or just like a lot of, I know we were talking about weighted blankets a couple years ago. Just that pressure. Like I like being walked on. I like it when my dogs pile on me. Like, so that has a calming effect on our nervous system. So yeah, that isn't the lightest type of massage, but it's the lightest we like.
Absolutely not the lightest kind.
Generally, traditionally, I would say Swedish massage is one of the most widely known, but kind of lighter types of massage. There's generally relaxation, and they're more about flowy movements and just more about relaxing. Sometimes they're called aromatherapy massage. They're really just about like caressing. Still beneficial. They'll still kind of drain your lymph, but you're not going to get that deep muscle work like some of this other stuff.
Yeah, it depends on what you're looking for, really. I personally like the deep muscle work.
Yeah.
And I also like when I get my massages too, like they'll do it anyway, but I'll always ask them to like ease in with something more relaxing just to help drop my body into it. Because if they start with like the deep muscle work from the get-go, the second I'm on the table, like my body will go into a bit of a shock. Yeah. And I'll notice that I tense up, and then doing that obviously will hurt and damage the body later because then I'm not fully relaxed. So I like when it kind of eases into it. And that's another method too, is like if you're curious about it, but you don't want to kind of start off on the get-go, is like just gradually, you can even like do Swedish or aromatherapy massage like with something like hot stones or with medium pressure. Like that way you can kind of get a little bit of a taste of it, but not have to like fully dive off the deep end.
Yeah, hot stones are lovely too because the heat will help soften tissue and relax the nervous system. So you can always add that on. Just make sure it's a skilled place because I've had places where the stones are too hot and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, you're just burning the hair off my body.
It's a 2-for-1. They're like, this is hair removal and massage.
Exactly.
That's not to say that they burn you all the time. That's just our little side joke about it. But the hot stone is lovely. If if it's not too hot, it's lovely.
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about the deep tissue. So this can look like things, a lot of different techniques. I think shiatsu is the Japanese style. They'll often do, deep holding pressure with like elbows, or they might walk on you. And if you've never been walked on, it's not terrible. It's not painful. They usually have something to assist removing the full-on weight and making it lighter. So shiatsu and Thai yoga massage, they will actually walk on you, and it's lovely. It's really...
And they're able to like get into certain groups of your body a lot deeper using like the heels and the toes even. I remember when I got it done for the first time and she came towards my neck, she like used, it sounds crazy, she like used her toes to like dig deeper into the sides of my neck and into like my, even my scapula. And I remember laying there being like, oh, that feels really different because you can only do so much, I think, with like the heels and the palms of your hands, but something about the toes and like the grip of it could really like facilitate a much deeper feeling. So definitely like you have to have it done, I think, once in your life just to experience it. But if
a place has good reviews or someone referred you to it. But generally it's very popular. And I love too when they, if you're on a mattress and they're walking on you, they usually have a support, like a what is it? Like
Yeah, like a rope or a pole.
yeah,
Or
something they hold
yeah.
on to reduce the weight. But
Yeah.
what I love about it is because they're standing, they're able to rock and like they can put pressure on your shoulder and your hip at the same time. So it feels really encompassing, like full body type of massage. So that's Thai yoga massage. It's also another term where they're actively turning you and stretching you and twisting you as if you were doing some yoga poses, but it's assisted. So you lay there calmly and they assist your body in stretching deeper than just laying flat on a massage bed. So one of my favorite Chinese Tui Na massage is they don't do the twisting as much where they do yoga poses, but they will use kind of meridian style movements. So we love, that's my husband and I's one of our favorite techniques. It's like kind of a body massage. So they'll, use oils or whatever on the body, but they're following certain meridians and pressure points.
Oh, wow.
But it's deep. So that one I really love. And then we talk a lot about the lymphatics. So any body work you get is going to have movement of your lymph. And we're going to talk about this next, the science behind it, real quick, and we'll show you the lymphatic system. But some lymphatic massages, and I've had this as a complaint from some people, is super light. Like it's almost pressure, like surface pressure.
Yeah.
But you can have deep ones too that will move the lymph as well. So I don't know. I mean, there's certain things called lymphatic drainage massage. Those I think generally will be lighter, but you can have a deeper massage that moves lymph as well too.
Yeah, definitely. That one, and then the other one, I think we mentioned in the beginning, the visceral organ.
Visceral organ, my favorite.
I had that done on my stomach, and it was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna say it. I had some of the best poops of my entire life after the massage.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you never know the tension you're holding in your like belly, in your gut. And I had one really recently. And it's, again, sometimes there'll be massage therapists who do this, but I actually have found chiropractors who are also trained in visceral organ manipulation. So we'll put that in our mini guide too for you guys to download in the member portal. But you can look up specific techniques. But the last one I had done was from my chiropractor here, and just crazy awesome moves. Like, I don't know if I can kind of show you. He would sort of dig into the wall here on the side of my belly. So if this is my belly, he'd go right in the side. And then he'd have me twist my knees in the opposite direction. So my whole torso was pulling the organs. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And I could just feel fluid rushing in areas of my belly that haven't been there in a long time. So pretty cool. So that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about why all this stuff is beneficial besides the fact that it just feels great. One of the main reasons is because, let me turn this off so we can actually see this. So we're talking about parasympathetic activation with any of these bodywork modalities. And this may sound like a really big word for people who've never heard about this before, but this is basically the idea of turning off fight or flight and going into rest and digest mode. So that's, becoming a lot more popular in everyday language. But the parasympathetic nervous system innervates all these parts of your body. It goes from your brain to all of these organs. As you can see, like even your eyes, your salivary glands, your heart, liver, stomach, spleen, gallbladder, pancreas, like every organ, right? Look, every organ that you can think of is connected. And this is just one half of your autonomic nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system is this, you can look at it here. Here's your brain, here's your spine, and they connect through these nerve pathways to different organs. And when you are in sympathetic or parasympathetic mode, different functions are being activated or suppressed. So it's like a light switch. So you can't have both functioning at the same time. So you're either flipped into parasympathetic mode or you're flipped into sympathetic mode. And why that's really important to understand is because stress, chronic stress, anything that is alarming, mentally, physically stressful to us will put us into sympathetic mode. And it's really important because look what it does. It dilates our pupils. It inhibits salivation. So we're not like wasting energy, like trying to digest food.
Mhm.
It accelerates our heartbeat. So our blood and oxygen is pumping all through our body. What it actually does is it shunts blood and oxygen away from our vital organs and into our extremities, like our large muscles, like our legs, so we can run or we can fight. So think about just that. Like if you are in fight or flight mode and you need to optimize the functions of your body, you're going to turn off things that can be done later, like digestion or reproduction, hormone regulation, and you're going to go straight to like brute force. Like, do I need to run or do I need to fight? And then when our bodies then realize there's no more threat, it switches off sympathetic mode and goes into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And that allows us to stimulate saliva again, slow down the heartbeat, stimulate peristalsis and secretions in the stomach and release bile and do all the digestion stuff, right? So that allows us to heal, regenerate tissue, metabolize, absorb our nutrients, and that's rest and digest. Here's the problem, guys. Because mental and like physical and mental stressors will put us into sympathetic mode. How many of you guys have had 5 minutes in the last week where you haven't been worried about something? Was it your taxes coming up? Did you remember to turn off the stove? Is it like whatever it is, like you have a Zoom call coming up that you're stressed out about? Is it something bigger like world issues that you're all following? You're watching the news, you're scrolling social media, you see something, you're like, don't forget this. In our modern lifestyles, we are always stressed about something, whether it's like our to-do list or something in front of us, all the visuals we're getting, all the news we're getting. So we, as a people, are in chronic sympathetic stress, which isn't bad. Sympathetic is necessary, but we need to switch it off. So all these mindfulness practices are things that are helping us switch to parasympathetic, like meditation and, taking breaks, turning off social media, compartmentalizing our to-do lists and our work life schedules. But when we're stuck, going and laying down on a table and getting any of this body work automatically switches our body into parasympathetic mode. So we get like a boost in that rest and digest. So I think, Neeyaz, you were referring to like falling asleep on the table or, just being blissed out. That like after body work bliss is a legit thing. And it's thanks to our parasympathetic system. So there's the science behind why you should get body work. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about lymphatic system, which I mentioned. But if you want to start, Neeyaz, you can tell us about the lymph.
Yeah. So can you zoom in a little closer?
Yeah, on this one. So this is the full body. You guys can see the lymph nodes, the big green areas. And then these, this is what I kind of refer to as the highway, like the channels. It runs parallel to our circulatory system. So I don't know why the circulatory system got like so much press and the lymph system just got ignored. Because literally they're both just running parallel in our body as these like tubes of liquid.
Right.
Incredibly important. And our lymph system carries our white blood cells. So like our used white. So it's incredibly important with people with immune issues or autoimmunity, because these were the first signs I noticed before I knew I had autoimmunity. But when I had chronic infection, look at these areas where these nodes are. Who has had tenderness or pain here?
Yeah. Here
in your armpits, maybe around your breasts, there's a lot. How about here in your crotch? Oh, I'm zooming in on the crotch.
Well, we did vaginal health last month.
Yeah, exactly. Last month. But have you guys ever had like tenderness in those areas?
Yeah.
That often is gunk stuck in your lymph nodes. So major for me in the past, but since I've learned about this and I move it and, don't do things like foods that inflame me as much, but as soon as I start to feel that, I go, ooh, my lymph is stressed.
Yeah.
And then if you look around the face, sorry, there's really specific ones here. I just want to show you. So behind the ear here, there's ones like actually here. It's hard. It's our skull, right? But like here, all the way down. And then on our occiput here, that's why I love this ridge right in the back of our head.
Yeah.
If you just push on that, like that's a major lymph node.
Yeah.
And then if you go from the back of your ear, there's a mastoid process, which is this bony thing behind the ear. And then if you take that down to this notch in your clavicle, you go all the way down that's your SCM muscle. And it's full of lymph nodes. So even yourself, I love this picture. I always send this to my clients.
I love it.
If you do this from half and half of your face and lightly, this doesn't have to be deep, like the pressure you'd put on your eyeball. So the amount of pressure you put on your eyeball, you go in these lines and you drag down the jaw like this. Think of this jaw here as the entry point to your face. And then it goes to your SCM, and then you just drag it down your SCM. So go across your face, down this hole, and then like drag it down the SCM. And I've had clients who have started doing this and like their allergies clear up, or like their headaches, their head pain, things like that. It's best to do this in a warmer environment. So if you can do it in the shower, in the bathtub, in a sauna. Because lymph actually is solid at room temperature. It needs to be a little bit, it's like coconut oil, right? You put coconut oil.
Oh my God, it's a perfect way to describe it. It's also like the same coloring almost.
Exactly. So think of coconut oil going through vessels in your body, and you need to warm it up a little bit, and you need to kind of drag it out. So you're going to do it over your eyes, like everything, just drag it to this corner and down. And if it's your first time doing it, and you can do it on both sides, if it's your first time ever doing it, start from the bottom and move up, because you don't want to create a bottleneck traffic jam of just
right.
Dump. So just kind of get it out of these pathways. But that's one of my favorite, absolutely free. You can do anywhere. Do it in the shower. Like you don't even have to set up anything fancy while you're shampooing your hair and it's sitting. Just start doing this and dragging it down your SCM.
I love to even like warm a little bit of oil in my hands, like right after the shower, and just start like doing these kind of movements. My favorite one lately is like taking the ridge or the knuckle of my finger, like right across my eyebrows and then dragging it. I'm like, you don't realize how much tension we hold under our eyebrows, especially, but like pulling that down too is super helpful. Even like dry brushing is a surface level way of like moving that out of the body too, and you brush towards the heart to help flush everything out also. So I'll do like a little bit of dry brushing, and then I'll go into the shower and I just start doing these kinds of drainage, and it just, I mean, your skin looks a lot clearer, you look less puffy and nice plump, and a little bit of cheek coloring, so it's good.
I'm really kicking myself for not having planned to have all my tools in my vicinity, but maybe next month we'll do this for our product reviews. But there's dry brushing, there's wet brushing, there's gua sha tools, which I have. There's like wooden kind of scraping tools that you can use. My activator. What other tools are there? Different oils are really great. So depending on your constitution and your skin and all of that, you can use coconut oil, sesame oil, not the toasted kind. Use like the organic, untoasted kind. Olive oil, castor oil. These are my favorites.
I use almond oil. You can use apricot seed oil is also another good one too.
Yeah, so these are all really great ones to kind of prime your skin and also help stuff move easier, just a tiny bit. And then they absorb and actually help the nutrients, and they help the toxins flow and all of that. So this is one of the most affordable, accessible techniques. And yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into one of our Q&A questions, actually. So let me pull it up. The question actually is, what if I don't have access to these bodywork modalities? And I assume that they probably meant things like massage and acupuncture, like the ones that necessarily you have to go out and seek. And hopefully the ones that we've mentioned, like something like this lymphatic draining, tapping, honestly, even yoga is a form of doing some sort of body work, especially ones where you're holding postures for a longer period of time, or you're in like an active stretch or an active flexion type of posture. So something like a yin yoga is also another way of getting into that bit of body work too. And you can still like facilitate those with using different props like foam roller or blocks or blankets to help prop yourself up, or to go a little bit deeper into the posture as well too. Or even like the tennis balls, like you can use a regular tennis ball that like you throw for your dog, or you can get like the yoga balls themselves. And I actually love to have one. I also thought I had one at my desk, and I don't. I usually keep one at my desk, and I roll my foot on it throughout the day. If I'm sitting, like I'll roll my foot out on it. And even during the day, like I'll take it and I'll like roll my back onto it, or I'll roll my shoulder onto it I'll use the wall like as the surface level, or as a surface. So that's another way too, that you can get into these really deeper nooks and crannies of the body and support that kind of healing without going out and looking for a massage or acupuncture if that's not accessible for you. So hopefully these other modalities are ones that you can have access to.
Yeah. And like we mentioned, it's just one of the oldest kind of tools we've had as living human beings. So even getting your partner to kind of give you a massage they may not be a professionally trained massage therapist, but like you can try it that way too. Just having friends, family, loved ones. Those are accessible ways. And it's great for relationships too. Like if you do have a partner and you guys use this as a activity instead of watching TV mindlessly one night, just like switch off and do partner yoga. There's actually a lot of YouTube videos or courses or whatever where you can learn how to do it and have it feel great, and it's free. Yeah.
Well, another question we have is, I don't really like to be touched. What can I do about that?
Well, that's a great question. And I've had a lot of clients in the past who have this concern, or they maybe start out this way. I may be the first person they've ever worked with who really is touching them, because a lot of healthcare and medicine and, stuff is very hands off. It's like, okay, we'll listen to you, we'll prescribe something, or we'll, give you something to walk out the door with. So what I would say to the people who don't like to be touched is, first of all, try to understand where that's coming from. Is it because of trauma? Was there something that happened that made you averse to touch? And this is where it's really important to work with a professional therapist to explore those ideas, because any trauma that we're holding in our mind or body, like our space, is going to continue to create disconnects in our living being and manifest as other problems down the road. So, know that there's a lot of support and care for you, even if it may be hard to go there, or you may not remember it. If it was like, abuse, or if it was like a trauma where you were in a car accident and then now you're just hypersensitive to touch, you want to work with people who are really trained in this regard. So if it was something that happened that made you not like to be touched, I really encourage you to address those first and foremost before just like diving into like a massage that you schedule randomly on a weekend, because those things will impact your life and healing on such a deeper level. And then you can think about exploring different bodywork modalities. But if it wasn't really something traumatic that happened to you, you just feel like hypersensitive to touch, there's a possibility that it's just inflammation that is sending off pain receptors, because inflammatory cytokines will make you feel hypersensitive to pain, to touch. And so finding ways to bring down inflammation through diet or lifestyle, those sort of things, but start with the body work to help bring down inflammation as well, because that's one of the benefits of it, is it actually reduces inflammation. So if you start with the body work, start with the modalities we talked about that are lower, slower, lighter. So maybe start with the energy work. You might feel that more profoundly than somebody who isn't as sensitive to touch. So depending on your constitution or whatnot and your history. And then what I found is as people start getting that work, their brain starts to acclimate, or their resilience builds. So I've liked deep tissue, but then the more I get it, the deeper I kind of want it, because my brain it's like building a muscle. You're building that resilience to your communication with your deep pain mechanoreceptors. So it actually can turn from removing inflammation, which feels bad and painful, to rewiring to understand it's therapeutic and it feels good. So that shift will happen if you stick with it and find techniques that match your physiology. Do you have anything to add to that, Neeyaz, about people who don't?
You kind of really said it. Like if it's not a matter of a trauma, And if it's really just you just don't really like to be touched, which I totally respect, and looking into ways that are more energy that don't require like a very visceral type of touch. Like Natasha said, it might be that you feel that a lot deeper than something that is more physical. And if that's still not accessible or that's still not of interest, then start by, you being the one to touch yourself first. Like start with these kind of like the lymph massages or putting lotion on yourself and like really rubbing it into your body, rubbing it into your feet, like start to get really familiar and comfortable with just being able to touch yourself as well too. And then that might over time allow you to then maybe open up a little bit more trust into finding somebody else that can help to facilitate that even deeper. And again, that comes with like really finding those practitioners that you do trust, because the first person that you go to may not be the one that you want to go see all the time. So you have to do a little bit of a shopping or really asking for referrals. That's probably like the best way to find someone, because at least it's coming from someone that you already know and trust. So that's a really great way of finding somebody. Or even like, honestly, Yelp is a really great place too. You can read reviews from people and people on Yelp are very honest. So that's another way too. But doing a little bit of shopping, asking around, ask your doctor. Guaranteed your doctor probably knows somebody who they would trust or that they would recommend. I've done that for a few of my Bodywork referrals, is by asking my doctors or somebody that I know who's also really into Bodywork, like, hey, where do you go get your massages done? Because I'm like looking for somebody else, and they might have somebody who knows somebody, and that way it comes from some place that's also really trustworthy too.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, people don't like it because they're holding a lot of pain and tension.
Yeah.
So go see a trained professional. And the ones that I can think of that I can help with actual issues are people like chiropractors, osteopaths, PTs, or I forgot to mention this earlier, like a shout out to our women's health, but pelvic floor PTs, if you're a female and you have any pain down there, could be a tight pelvic floor. So they can actually help release like long-term those issues, and then you won't have hypersensitivity. So look for people who this is their career, to look for any imbalances, problems that could be leading to discomfort. Don't just like brush it under the rug being like, I don't like it, I'm never going to approach it. Like find a professional who can evaluate and say, hey, you're operating at 10% of your potential, and let's get you to that place where you're living fully.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Great.
I think we had one more question. How often should I engage in these types of body work? I think it's a twofold answer. One being as often as you would like, as often as you have accessible means to, as often as you have access to. And also, depending on the body work itself, some of them you feel the benefits of them when you do go more consistently. So something like acupuncture, going once every 6 months is not going to cut it, because that's something that you need to go a bit more consistently in order to help your body to really feel and reap the benefits of the therapy itself. So personally, I go weekly because that's how often my body really craves it, and that's how often my acupuncturist recommends that I go. I've gone to other places where they say every 2 weeks, but it also depends on like what you're actually working towards too. Massage, I'm a monthly massage person because I don't like to wait personally until I'm in pain or until my body's uncomfortable to go and seek out these type of therapies. I want to catch it before that even happens or avoid it altogether. And I think that that's also really important, is like not going when you are only in pain or only uncomfortable. But if you go really often and consistently, you start to mitigate that inflammation, you start to mitigate that pain. So that way you're able to go a lot deeper into these practices as well too. Like Natasha was saying, like, I feel like every time I get a deep tissue, I want to go deeper and deeper. It's because your body is starting to really absorb these kinds of healings. And that's important, is that you want to go even deeper into this journey too, and not just staying where you're comfortable or just taking care of the root, taking care of like the surface level issue, but you want to get down to the root itself.
Yeah, a lot of my mentors in the training that I did referred to it as kind of like an onion, where you're peeling back the layers. So you'll get one session of whatever, chiropractic, massage, acupuncture, and it'll peel away one of the layers. And then so then your body will be like, oh, I have space, I have capacity to handle a little bit more, and then a little bit more. So it's not like you become an addict to like pressure or whatever. It's that you're actually going deeper into your own healing. And something that Neeyaz, articulated really well, but is similar to a terminology that I use in my practice a lot, is the idea of relief care versus wellness care. So relief care is where you're on a roller coaster of waiting till something's wrong, or you have a symptom, or you're like in an emergency. You're like, I can't get out of bed, can't walk, I need help. And that's this terrible up and down roller coaster of like, I feel terrible, I'm in the ditch, I'm going to get some therapies till I'm functional, and then leave it until I'm back in the ditch. What you can do in that process is if you continue to get care, you actually start leaving the ditch more and more. And that's when we start reaching these levels of what we call wellness, and where your vitality is actually at a baseline much higher. So you're not just putting out fires, you're actually optimizing your health and well-being. So that's one of the benefits of scheduling these bodywork sessions and working with people consistently, instead of just when you're like, I can't handle it anymore, I need something to blow off steam, or just get like my back unlocked or something. So that idea of really engaging in that investment for yourself of like wellness care to get you to levels that you didn't even know existed, besides just like no pain versus pain, no pain versus pain.
Yeah.
So, so we will put lots more resources in our mini guide. You guys can download it in the member portal.
Great.
But we are going to wrap up here with a quick little thing on EFT. So tell us, take us into it.
All right. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's a form of intervention that also kind of falls into the spectrum of like acupuncture, like I talked about, also like neurolinguistic reprogramming or programming, energy medicine, of course, too. You've also probably heard of TFT tapping, which stands for thought field therapy. The difference between the two is that TFT uses a very different tapping sequence and a different number or duration of sequencing specific to whatever the issue is or the problem area is that you're trying to heal through. So whether that's anger or guilt, they have two different types of tapping sequencing, versus EFT is just generally one type of sequencing that you can kind of use for any sort of healing sequencing that you're really looking for. So we're going to do TFT or EFT, which is, I think, it's my favorite one. It's the one that I do the most often. So I'll show you the different meridian points that we're going to tap through. But essentially, when we're tapping through these meridian points in this specific order, while also simultaneously repeating affirmations or statements out loud, you're able to then feel that connectedness between your physical, your mental, and your energetic body. So generally the way that this would go in a normal longer sequence of tapping, we're going to do like a shorter one right now, but generally like a more traditional one is that you start by first tapping through any negative or false limiting thought or statement. That way you're giving it a voice. You're at least being really aware of, this is how I truly authentically feel right now. And you're giving a voice to those negative or false statements first. And then you're going to go through a whole different sequencing pattern of actually saying it almost an opposite, but basically saying the true or the more positive statements. And then that basically, to put it in layman's terms, it cancels it out in a way. But it helps you to then release those sensations or those discomforts from the body. So it's very emotionally healing, and it's also very physically healing. It's used for people who have experiences with like PTSD or even like chronic pain as well too, because a lot of it is also like what you're mentally telling yourself too, because it's like a little bit of placebo also. I can tell myself that I have a headache over and over and over again, and then I'm going to eventually develop a headache, not even because of outside circumstances, of more or less that I told myself that I had one. So it helps to marry all those different types. Okay, so the tapping sequencing. So we first start by tapping on the karate chop point, which is the side of the hand right by the pinky. You can use however many fingers you like to tap. I end up just using my middle and my pointer finger to tap. So we're going to start by tapping here. This is where we first start tapping to go through and say out loud all of the false or limiting beliefs first. After we've tapped through all of those statements, we go to the top of the head. So you'll tap here. And people ask me, like, how many times do you tap? As often or as long as you'd like to, or as long until you've said the statement. And then maybe you want to like pause for a moment before you move to the next area. There's no real true number of times you want to tap here. So you'll go to the top of the head, and then from here, you're going to go to your eyebrow. So you'll go to the head of the eyebrow closest to the third eye center. And then from the eyebrow, you'll go to the side of the eye. And then you'll go to right underneath your eye. And then underneath your nose, I like to say like the cupid's bow of your lip. So you'll tap right there. And then the chin. Then the collarbone, and you can do one collarbone, you can do two collarbones. I end up just doing one because I usually place a hand on my heart when I'm tapping, or on my belly. And then you'll go to the under the arm, so just right underneath the armpit, like the side of the ribs. And then you'll go back to the top of your head. And then when you're done, you'll finish out the sequencing all the way to the side of the body, come back to the karate chop point, and then you'll rest. So, ready? Any questions, Natasha?
Oh, I'm muted here. Sorry.
Oh, you're
no,
muted.
that sounds awesome. I
Okay.
have done this several times too, and yeah, I love it. And
Amazing.
go for it. Let's
All right,
wrap
so
it up,
we'll do
and
it.
then we'll just finish up the
Okay.
call that way.
Great. So let's all just start by closing our eyes first and just staying really nice and rooted in our seat. So maybe like lifting your sitting bones a little bit and just helping yourself really root into wherever you're seated right now. And if you want to place one hand on your heart, maybe left hand on your heart, right hand on your belly, and just start to feel that connectedness with your breath. Let's start by taking a deep inhale in together from the bottom of your belly, filling chest all the way to the top, holding it here for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhaling out of the nose. You can keep your eyes closed. I'll say the points that we're going to tap, or if you want to open your eyes and watch me, that's also totally okay. We're going to start by tapping on the karate chop point, the side of the hand by the pinky. I'll say the statement once, and then I will give you a pause to say the statement to yourself out loud. Even though there is a part of me that I reject, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I struggle most days with feeling disconnected to parts of me, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Top of the head. I accept myself with all of my imperfections. Eyebrow close to third eye center. I embrace all parts of myself. Side of the eye. I am grateful that I can recognize all that I need. Under the eye. I am loving, loved, and lovable. Under the nose. I am grateful that I am working on loving myself unconditionally. Chin. I am open to giving and receiving love. Collarbone or collarbones. I choose to begin to love myself exactly as I am. side of the body, rib cage. In doing so, I am free to be me. And karate chop point, side of the hand. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. One more time. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Resting your hands in your lap, palms up towards the ceiling. Taking a deep inhale in. Holding it at the top for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale out of the mouth and let something go. And that's your short and sweet tapping sequence. I will make sure that this one specifically is in your the mini guide for this month too.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. My mic was muted because I was afraid the dogs would make noise. So I was like, wasn't able to join in there. But it's so funny when I start doing this too. My dogs start sighing and they're just like, oh, because they can feel the energy. And if you guys have pets, you probably notice that when you're stressed or when you take a deep breath, they do too. Because our energy fields and our posture and everything reflect our internal state. So thank you for leading us through that. And thank you everyone for joining our call. We have the mini guide will be up in the member portal as soon as we get all the details in, but anything we mentioned on this call will be on there, plus more details. We have our product review and our recipe and all of that stuff in the member portal. So if you're not a member, feel free to click the link and join in the comments. And we will see you guys next month. I think we have some topics lined up that are pretty exciting, but I'm starting to feel like we should go deeper into the lymphatic and skin stuff just because it was so much we couldn't cover on this call.
We can do skin stuff. I like that.
So yeah, let's do lymph and skin next month. So you guys join us and we'll teach you like all kinds of things you can do at home in addition to tapping and massage and all of that.
Great.
So cool. Thanks for being here, everyone. And if you're watching the replay, leave us a comment. Let us know you watched it. And any questions you have, we'll get back to you.
Great.
Download your stuff in the portal and we'll see you guys next month.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.